looks at the controversy surrounding Trump.
A free telephone helpline has been set up, and we'll give you the number after this report by Peter Main.
According to Help the Aged, this simple room thermometer costing just a few pennies could be a lifesaver. Now available from doctors' surgeries, health centres or direct from the charity, it gives early warning of when the old are in danger.
Well, one of the major problems in winter is that when it does get cold, elderly people very often don't actually notice the change in climate and the change in temperature. So this thermometer will draw attention to the fact that the temperature is going down, because once it gets to 60 or below, they are in danger from all sorts of respiratory illnesses beginning to develop.
Actress Thora Hird and a nutrition expert ran through some of the store-cupboard foods that can help people stay alive during a cold snap. Though the actress, who admits to being over 70 herself, had her own ideas about the ideal winter warmer.
Every vegetable you've ever heard of, you know, a bit of your chicken stock that's left, a little bit of your beef stock or anything, a pan that size, my mother used to do it, and it's like a broth. Oh, you haven't got anywhere around here, have you? Beautiful.
Help the Aged staff are also manning a special hotline, a free phone number funded by the Department of Health and Social Security to give advice on how to stay warm this winter.
And that telephone number to ring for Help the Aged's free advice line is 0800 289 404. That's 0800 289 404. And now back to the postal workers' dispute. The final round of talks with management have just broken up without agreement. This means industrial action threatening the Christmas mail could start later this afternoon. John Fryer is outside the Post Office headquarters.
I understand that the Post Office chairman has told Mr Tuffin and his union colleagues that any sort of industrial action will be highly damaging to the business. The government has made it known this morning that the Post Office's monopoly on handling letters will be lifted, letting in private operators to handle the mail. But both sides are now expecting industrial action to happen perhaps within the next few hours, with the Post Office's main sorting offices the main target.
A former TV journalist, Brian Milton, is on his way to Australia in a Microlight plane. He took off from London this morning on a 28-stop journey that will take him to Port Darwin in less than 30 days. During the longest leg across Saudi Arabia, he plans to set a record for non-stop flying in a Microlight. Mr Milton took off from London's Dockland Airport today to follow the route of the first flight ever from Britain to Australia. If all goes well, he'll set a time record for this distance. He'll travel little faster than a normal car and in such cramped conditions that there is no room for a parachute aboard. It's rather dangerous. It's coming up to 1:30 and time for another look at the headlines. Talks between Post Office Union and management to try to avert a Christmas mail strike have just broken up without agreement. Prince Charles has attacked some modern architects as doing more damage to Britain than Hitler's Air Force. And the formal inquiry into the King's Cross fire has been opened. More on all these stories in our later news programmes. This has been the 1 o'clock news from the BBC. Good afternoon.
Hello to you. I'm just wondering how far that Microlight will get, because as he heads east, he's facing into some very strong easterly winds coming off the continent. Over the next few days, we're going to lose this high pressure as it moves off into Europe, and it's going to be replaced by this area of low pressure. But before it does, let's have a look at the winds, and they're pretty strong along the south here, up to gale force strength in place. Over the next 24 hours, not too much change, but we'll see that the winds will gradually go round from a southeasterly point. The wind strength still basically the same and still strong enough to give some gales down in the southwest. Tomorrow, this little front will introduce more in the way of cloud and some flurries of sleet or snow, particularly on the high ground. But it's these frontal systems further south coming on Friday that will be bringing a bit of a change, some very heavy rain indeed, but at least it will introduce some warmer air, particularly into the southwest. It was a pretty cold night last night. Aviemore down to -9 degrees Celsius, some freezing fog patches around. And there's a bit of a turn up for the book in the Outer Hebrides, Benbecula with the frost down to -2 degrees Celsius. And still some mist patches hanging around here this afternoon, just the odd shower perhaps on that southeastern coast, but another fine day for much of Scotland. Coming further south and west, 1 or 2 light showers around, but here a good deal of dry, bright and sunny weather as well. Much more in the way of cloud along these southern counties, but here too there could be just the odd isolated shower around, and you notice already perhaps the odd one tending to look a bit on the sleety side. Temperatures today, well, not marvellous down in the south, only around about 5 or 6 degrees Celsius. Aviemore unlikely to get above freezing today, and normally we expect temperatures to rise during the day, but in fact it's one of those days when they're starting to fall, getting down to 4 degrees Celsius just about now. Tonight, dry just about everywhere, but there will again, I think, be some of these freezing fog patches, particularly in those sheltered glens of Scotland. And a cold night coming up too. There again, -5, some icy patches to watch out for, particularly in Scotland. Most places feeling bitterly cold, and even in some central parts of England, Wales and Ireland, the temperature getting close to 0, and those winds still pretty strong overnight as well. Tomorrow, well, it'll be a fine day again for Scotland once the mist and fog is cleared away. Most of us, it's going to be continuing fairly cold, but much cloudier in the south and some light rain coming, many places staying dry, but on the high ground, that rain will be of sleet or snow. Moving into Friday, still fine in the north, but that cloud, rain, pushing gradually north. It will be of sleet or snow, particularly on the high grounds, and 1 or 2 showers coming into the southwest as it turns a little bit warmer. And for the weekend, well, things do change in Scotland, clouding over, some snow, some maybe heavy falls, particularly over the high ground or in the highlands, and a fair amount of heavy rain, and that will gradually begin to swing its way southwards as we go through right into the weekend, but some brightness in the south. That's it from me.